Hello, hello. It's nice to see you. I'm here with Paul Lobosco again. We're here to talk about some of these big challenges we're up against. How you doing tonight, Paul?
Johnny, I am doing great. I have to tell you, it's always an honor to be here on this podcast with one of my heroes.
Oh, right back at you, Paul. Man, you
Yeah.
did such great work during this fight for our independence here over the last cycle, and yeah, just illuminating some of the truths that are under the radar. So thank you so much for all the work that you've been up to.
Same to you. We
And now you
we're
got the
very simpatico, my friend.
yeah. Now you got the American health revolution coming up here. You got this is great. I'm stoked about this. Going to be getting the word out on all these issues, carrying the torch. So this is coming up soon. A big kickoff.
It is. We're working. We're doing this the right way. We're putting the building blocks together, and we're close to a launch. We're going to have a private invitation party, so to speak, prior to the launch, and then I think we'll be up and running in, I would say, less than a month from now. But the website is just about done. That is something we've put a tremendous amount of time into. There's a lot of great information there. We are out to educate the public, to demystify some of these, issues that it seems like people are being confused about, gaslit over. We have well sourced, very truly nonpartisan information that will hopefully help everyone come together, because really this is about coming together. It's about uniting. What matters more than our children, right? And I think I've heard you say that. What matters more than our future? That's
Yeah,
not a left or right issue.
that's right. That's right. The health of us and our loved ones, right? You know, our very lives are being taken from us. You know, we could be doing so much better, and yeah, our freedoms as well on the line. So the whole enchilada.
Yes, yes. It was, this week we were doing some work and I was reminded of the line. Who said this, Johnny? If people let the government decide what foods they eat and what medicines they take, their bodies will soon be in as sorry a state as are the souls who live under tyranny.
You
That,
know, at first it sounded like Jefferson. Is that him?
that is correct.
All right. Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson, who was one of our founding fathers, of course, our third president. But when you think about it, he's talking about some of the basic fundamental principles that this country was founded on, what they were breaking away from. And yet here we are again facing that same level of tyranny. And, I've been growing more and more comfortable using the F word, Johnny.
Mm.
That word is fascism. But we'll get to that. Meanwhile, I just have a quick public service announcement. And this is just an invitation. And you talk about this all the time. We need to understand as a people that we have the power. And what does that mean? What does that look like? Very simply, going into and feeling worthy and comfortable doing this, going into your local grocery store, asking for the manager and saying to them, hey, I've been reading up a lot on the food that we've been buying here in the stores, and we're growing concerned about the ingredients in the food, and we think that a lot of it is actually poisoning us over the long term. And we'd like to invite you to take a look at this and see what we can do together to improve the quality of the food on the store shelves. And where are you getting your food from? Let's talk about delivering more organic products to our store shelves. Let's talk about more local sourcing, right? Because this is a revolution. It's not just an art title, but it's an actual revolution. People are waking up. And so, what we need to do from the grassroots level is we need to change the demand side of the equation by saying we no longer want this. We now want this. So that will force the hand of these corporations who, they can lobby all they want. They can support the candidates all they want. But if the people are refusing to buy these toxic foods, then that will change how they do business.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and we choose with our dollars. How everybody's going to act. These economic incentives. That's what's so powerful. That's what's driving everything. So yeah, and making the voice heard, right? Being explicit about it. That's powerful. It's crazy. Just so much toxicity. The receipts they give us sometimes have forever chemicals on them that can be absorbed in the skin. These forever chemicals are called that because, of course, our body can't detoxify them. And yeah, so it's like these cashiers, they should be wearing gloves. But how crazy is that? Why should they have to wear gloves? It's like there's there's safe ways to make receipts. So it's crazy.
Right,
It's
right. It's funny you talk about the chemicals. I was just watching a little documentary recently about the origin of PFOAs, and they started the story back in the late 1920s in Chicago. People were dying mysteriously, something like 15 or 20 people, and they couldn't figure out what it was. And finally, they determined that they were dying from what I believe was called methyl chloride, which was in the refrigerators and it was leaking. And it's a silent killer, it's an odorless gas. So they went about finding a better way of refrigerating, these products, and they came up with what turned out to be these PFOAs, and then that ended up becoming prevalent on pots and pans, and a lining of all kinds of things, and the cumulative effect over many decades now is what we're beginning to see. You know, um, right? We remember the movie Dark Waters, right?
these big poison companies, they want to deny these things, right? So why are these forever chemicals getting everywhere? It's because they were denied. They knew the science on it a long time ago, and they suppressed it. So now we've got the cleanup to really like remedy what's happened. It's just it's almost impossible. And then what they want to push now is they want to say, okay, well, it's too big of a hit for the economy to try to get the forever chemicals out of all of our these plastics, these consumables, that these one-use product packaging, and it's crazy. You guys are talking about there's no way for us to buy products from these corporations without being poisoning ourselves, our loved ones. And the big thing, Paul, these are endocrine disruptors, right? So these are decimating our fertility. We've got a fertility crisis in our country, in all of the West, in all of you know our countries. We all industrialized countries, we're on the track towards going to zero. And the answer is just we'll just bring in some immigrants. Well, okay, well, they're going to have the same problem. So what is this? We're just this is a mass poisoning. This is a great poisoning. That's what Catherine Austin Fitts, that's what she's been talking about. And yeah, we just have to wake up to it. And this is what's so important about this movement, because the press, the media, the propagandists, for far too long, they've been silent on all of this. They had the right kind of attitude in one way during COVID. They got it all wrong on just about every front, except that it was a big deal if so many people were dying. The chyron on the screen about all the deaths that were happening. This is what they should be doing for the chronic disease epidemic. We've got all of these diseases just going parabolic all at once, and it's a huge deal. And we should be doing everything that we can to make things better.
It's a slow motion holocaust, like a form of genocide, and that's why I use the term fascism, Johnny, because it is government and corporations working together, the agencies, the EPA, the FDA, the NIH, the WHO. These agencies are supposed to be the USDA. They're supposed to be protecting us, the people. That's what they're there for. But instead, they've been rubber stamping these genocidal practices for corporations so that the corporations can make more and more and more. If a little bit of glyphosate generates a better yield right, then a lot of glyphosate generates an even greater yield and a higher profit. And so that's what they've done, and that's of course why the companies are going state by state to try to give themselves a liability shield, similar to what we know about the vaccine developers. So this is how fascism works, and we are the lab rats. We how much of your life would you exchange for the convenience of fast food, or some form of, let's say, daily living that makes life easier, Johnny? Uh, uh, you know a pan that doesn't have to be cleaned out, it just washes right off. I think people would give maybe a few. Would you give 10 minutes of your life? Sure. Would you give 10 days of your life? Maybe. How about 10 months? How about 10 years? Would you
Right.
exchange 10 years of your life so that corporations can make more money, giving us the appearance of, this illusion of prosperity? And that's what we're faced with today.
Right. And it's not just like the last 10 months, right? It's like between now and then, it's like not being as healthy and full of vitality and strength and energy as you should be. And it's not just you and I. It's not just a decision for one of us, but it's all of us. It's everyone that you care about. They're all being impacted by all of these toxins. So yeah, it's just it's incredible. You talk about these liability shields. Chuck Benbrook, he was just on Nicole Shanahan's podcast, Back to the People, this last week, and he was going over these Monsanto papers. So again, they knew the harms they were causing, and in Europe, in fact, their version of Roundup is close to 100 times safer, depending on how you look at it. So then we have their internal memos now talking about how they were discussing, well, hey, why don't we just make our version in America safer? And for whatever reason, they didn't. It seems like they didn't want to admit that it was harming people. It seems like they didn't want to fess up, but it's like, well, come on, you guys. You know, this is a crazy thing, Paul. They've paid over $12 billion to people they've given cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. But with that, they've admitted no fault. So, in their view, their story is that what they're pushing is that this product causes no harm, it causes no cancer, but yet they're happy to pay $12 billion because this is like a settlement. They're willing to pay that because they know it should be more. So, this is it's just it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And now they want a liability shield. Okay, well, does it cause
Why?
cancer? It does.
Why?
On one hand, it doesn't cause cancer, doesn't cause any harms. On the other hand, we got to use this poison, or there's going to be a famine. And this line, this is what really burns me, Paul. No other country's using the poison we're using, and we've never had this poison until just last generation. So what are you talking about? Well, you can just do it like everybody else is doing it. We got the technology, we got the information, we know how to do it. It's just crazy.
Why is the United States of America being turned into a human wasteland, Johnny? Because the people in charge are for sale. That's why. And that's why so many of us were supporters of Bobby Kennedy, because we perceive him as not being for sale. Certainly his track record indicates that, right? But this is a trade-off. We are, whether we know it or not, whether we like it or not, we are exchanging our health, our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and also financial health for these profiteers who are no longer interested in delivering economic value that adds to our lives, quality and quantity, but rather takes away from us, so that our inherent human resources, our labor, is actually being extracted from us. This is not capitalism, right? It's not capitalism. We haven't had capitalism for at least 50 years, but it's what I call a system of extractionism. And again, from a socio-political point of view, it's really fascism, the merger of state and corporate power, right? at the expense of the people.
That's exactly right. That's the definition. That's how Mussolini defined it so long ago, and
Right.
that's exactly what we're seeing. And Kennedy talks about how we had this problem going back over 100 years ago, where everything was just kind of captured by these profiteers. And you think about it. What's their mandate? They have a fiduciary duty to their shareholders. They're in their shareholder meetings. They're in their boardrooms, and they're saying, "Hey, listen. If there's ever a question of ethics, and they say, what's the right way to go?" Well, the safe way for them is to go after the profits, because they can be sued by their shareholders, and nobody's going to jail if they offend us, if they harm the communities that they're operating in. We see time after time again, the opioid crisis. They made billions. They were fined a fraction of that. And now they're playing shell games, trying not to give out any payouts, saying, "Oh, no, 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 we're bankrupt." Yeah, they should be bankrupted. All their profits should be taken from them and then some, to really send a message that we're not allowing this. But that's not what happened. It was a fraction of their profits. So if they're ever doing the calculus, they can always say, "Well, hey, the harms, the fines are never, more than we're making." So it's an easy decision for them. And yeah, it's really, really, it's happening again. This is with the Citizens United Act. Uh, it's just unbelievable it's all coming back.
I think Citizens United was a very dark moment, Johnny. A very dark moment, because that's when the gloves came off, and the money in politics was taken to a completely new level. Both parties, and yeah. So it's about profit, it's about power, and it's time for the people. That's why I started out by saying, go to your local grocer. You know, I don't know, however many people get to hear this podcast, and we'll talk more and more about this. Uh, we need a peaceful revolution. The people have to make it clear. We have the power, and by being silent and not and just sort of going along, and even by picking fights, that's not the answer either. We're not going to win a boxing match. We have to rise above this and demand what we know in our hearts is the right thing, right? That's the people power that needs to come to the fore. That's my view. That's how we're approaching it at American Health Revolution. But we have a lot of the information there that people will be able to gather and learn from, and many people will be able to contribute to American Health Revolution. We want to hear from people, and I'll put my if anyone wants to do that, they can simply send an email to info@americanhealthrevolution.org, and we'll get back to them right away. So, um, but yeah, this has been going on for a long time in this country, Johnny, and you know we were given this illusion of prosperity through all of this deficit spending. And as I often allude to this, people get the second home, the new deck, the add-ons to the home, and so forth. And this illusion of prosperity takes hold. So it creates this complacency, like where we don't really have to think through the long-term implications of this, all of this wasteful spending. Um, we'll have to do a podcast strictly on the economics of this, but this deficit spending is really going to be taking a toll on us for many years. Now, there are positives, right? There are many great technological advances. Um, I was listening to Dr. Drew talking with Naomi Wolf, Dr. Naomi Wolf, recently. She is upset at the administration for not taking stronger action on the mRNA vaccine, and it's how it's being sort of slowly taken off the CDC schedule for what they term healthy pregnant women and children. I think it's her contention that it's even more dangerous for the people who are unhealthy, right? And so why would we be giving it to them? and now it's for a strain that no longer exists, right? That's my understanding. So, these are the things. But one of the things Dr. Drew said I thought was interesting was, he was talking about Vioxx, and we know that Merck hid the Vioxx effects, the side effects of Vioxx, and the health risks and the heart attacks that were resulting from that, and the number of deaths. Right, that's a well established uh, uh, case. But Dr. Drew was saying that Vioxx, was a great drug for certain people. And so, where do we find that sort of middle ground where we say, okay, this is a good drug. We need it for certain patients, but we need to make sure that people are informed. They need to understand the risks. They need to know what the side effects are. And more importantly, their doctors need to know this too, right? Just like with the vaccines. How many pediatricians know what's in the vaccines? Very few.
Informed consent, Paul. What a great idea. I'm into that.
Informed consent. Yeah. And, you know, the same thing, I think, with this product that was developed by the Rockefeller Gates Foundations and Andreessen Horowitz, and I forget who else. That product is called Apeel, Apeel. If you go to apeel.com, you'll see that it's some kind of a spray that is applied to fruits and vegetables to extend their life. Now, we have a lot of wasted food, especially in this country. A lot of food goes to waste. Simultaneously, we have millions of people in the world, tens of millions of people who go to bed hungry. Okay. So there's a challenge there, right? How do we satisfy this challenge? Is there a way we can bring those two things together? And I think that was their original theory behind developing Apeel. The problem I have here is that a lot of what goes into that product is a mystery, and they don't divulge the formula that is being used, and are there bioengineered components to that product, right? What are the long-term safety studies? Oh, there are none. you know, they get away with treating it as a fungicide instead of as a like an herbicide, so it doesn't have to go through the same rigors of testing and safety studies. So they're getting away with a lot. They know their way around the legalities of this, and what is it really doing? We don't know. We don't know. It's a mystery.
Paul, they found all sorts of nasty stuff in here, like lead and arsenic in these things. And you're right, it's proprietary. And I don't know of any other thing that can be organic to be sold, to be eaten by children that's proprietary, that's organic like this. This is crazy. And the fact that Bill Gates is behind this guy who is just into sending these GMOs, all this glyphosate to Africa, who wants to push all these vaccines in India, who's caused so many harms this way, who profited off of the pandemic, who seemed to have the inside track on it all, who invested in Moderna right before the pandemic started, who then after a couple of years later sold all his shares and then said, yeah, that vaccine didn't really work. And that's the thing, Paul. Bill Gates himself, this guy said the vaccine doesn't work. Joe Biden himself said the pandemic's over. So what are they doing with this mRNA vaccine, pushing it in on children? It's just crazy. We need apologies. We need Nuremberg trials. We need accountability. But yeah, instead we're just getting more vaccine injuries.
It's hard to believe. I don't think they'll ever come out and admit, Johnny, that they did. And that's less. I think accountability is crucial, no question about it. Um, I'm not sure where retribution fits in there, but definitely accountability is extremely important, and also getting the policies in place to change what needs to be changed, right? Get the glyphosate out of our system. Do it now. I don't want to hear about corporate profits and how, it's going to affect the food system in a certain way. We have ways of doing it. We have ways. There are natural herbicides that can be applied to these farms, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm an expert on all of it, but I have spoken to a number of these farmers who would gladly use all natural herbicides to apply to their farm products, and that is bad news for Bayer, right? It's bad news for Syngenta.
I tell you what, Paul, it's just crazy. I mean, where there's I love Zen Honeycutt's call to action that we want to ban the 85 chemicals here that are banned in other countries. We can go like they do with the precautionary principle in Europe, where they want to make sure that things are safe. You got to err on the side of safety when it comes to the health of everybody, especially when we're in a system like ours is, where we see scandal after scandal after scandal from our profiteers and from our agencies, from our public servants. We need to demand a whole lot better, and yeah, everything hinges on it.
Johnny, I hope everyone who's listening tonight has, if not, that's fine, but I hope everyone is familiar with the GRAS loophole, the GRAS, generally recognized as safe. I know you've talked about it extensively. The thing that gets me with that is they actually leave it up to the companies themselves to do the testing to determine if something is generally recognized as safe. So there's no real oversight, you know, and no company ever comes out and says, oh, this product isn't generally recognized as safe, so we're going to pull it from the market. So we have all of these products, poorly tested at best, and certainly none of them are tested in combination, right?
Right.
So we're getting all of these ill long-term effects from, what's we see it. Where do we see it? We see it with obesity, with diabetes, right? Metabolic dysfunction, uh, brain malfunctions, IQ levels dropping, sperm count reductions, ADD, ADHD. Uh, I mean, we can go down the list, right? We know there's a long list of chronic diseases that are plaguing our nation, and it's the true pandemic. This is the pandemic, the chronic disease pandemic. We call it an epidemic, but I think it's really a pandemic.
Yeah, it's just incredible. It's just again, the media there, their job, the media's been described as the fourth pillar of democracy. We need them. We need them to be an informed electorate. We need them to demand that we're represented by our public servants. And not only have they failed us in that respect, but they gaslight us. They propagandize us on behalf of these industry interests. And
That's
so,
right. Another
where
fascist tool, right? Sorry.
I you're
Yeah,
exactly right. So, dozens of diseases are going parabolic, and each one of them on its own demands it deserves the attention. Where the nightly news every night should be covering these things, each one of them by
they should.
themselves. But
They should.
we've got dozens of them going parabolic, and they're acting like nothing's happening. And yeah, they just present the other side like, I mean, this is just crazy, Paul, that we're allowing profiteers. Bayer is a Nazi German company. Okay, they have their roots in World War II, making the Zyklon gas, killing the Jews. They made the gas for the gas chambers, and now they're making the glyphosate that's killing us, more of us. They're killing tens of millions of us, maybe. And and the media doesn't want to report on it. They want to find some divisive web issue to devote all the time to devote all our energy to, and it's just it's despicable. It's a betrayal, and it's traitorous to all of us.
uh, One of the best reporters out there who truly is a journalist is Cheryl Atkinson. I don't know if you're familiar with her work, but she has a weekly show. The name eludes me, but you watch some of her broadcasts, and she really talks about the issues, and she's not afraid to tackle what's controversial. Right? What is a minority view, Johnny? It's an important part of the free society, of the discourse. Without saying one person is right, one person is wrong, we need to hear those minority views. And just as an example, I was watching an interview done with, I think it was being done with someone from Epic TV with Dr. Pierre Corey, who basically said, I had to leave the hospital system to be able to treat my patients, right? And he was talking about how ivermectin was demonized, hydroxychloroquine was demonized. Why? Because there was no money in those drugs. But remdesivir, thousands of dollars per, for I don't know, for whatever prescription. There was a lot of money in that, even though the drug itself was essentially useless or worse for most COVID sufferers, right?
There was
So
a failed Ebola drug, Paul. They said we can't use this on Ebola because its side effects are too
yeah,
strong. Ebola
yeah,
killed people. Like literally, it had like a massive kill rate, and it
yeah,
was too it was too
yeah.
toxic to use on Ebola if it was effective.
But with COVID, yeah. So ivermectin, which was a drug that was developed by Merck, even Merck was trying to minimize its potential benefits. Uh, they didn't even come out and say that the drug was basically safe. They didn't even come out and say that much, right? So this is because they had a drug. They wanted to develop a drug to treat COVID. And if an off-label use of an existing drug can be used to treat COVID, then the FDA says we can use this to treat COVID, then guess what? All of those vaccines are irrelevant. They can't be used. The EUA, the emergency use authorization, only applies if there's no existing drug to treat COVID. So lo and behold, you know they and when you have and not to digress too much on vaccines, Johnny, but right, when you develop a vaccine, you don't have to go through the safety testing. You can declare something safe and effective and try to make Johnny and Paul feel like the insane ones for claiming that it's not up to us to prove that the vaccines aren't safe. It's up to you to prove that they are safe, right? But they have a captive audience of hundreds of millions of people. They don't have to market to. They don't have to do the research. And then when you get, and this was something that I think Irene Mavrikakis spoke about with us not too long ago, how Moderna is developing a drug to treat the heart condition in young people that their own drug caused, the myocarditis. They had, what was it called, relaxant or something?
Right. This is the same thing with the big ag, right? Bayer buys Monsanto. Why is big pharma buying up big agriculture? Well, it's because this Monsanto is creating the cancer that Bayer is treating. Now when Monsanto comes up and they say, hey, maybe you shouldn't be poisoning everybody, and instead of their decision being like, well, hey, we're making this much money selling the poison, and this is the harms that we're getting in the courtrooms from killing so many people.
Mhm.
Now Bayer has another side to their equation. They're saying, well, we're making tens of thousands of dollars off every course of chemo treatment. So it changes the whole equation for them, and they can just keep on going on and poisoning us. It's in their interests, and so they vertically integrated this, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's unbelievable we're letting this happen.
The exchange of human health for profit. That's what it is. And American the stewards of our system here in America, by and large, there are exceptions, no question. There are some real good guys in this fight, right? Uh, and you and I have, I think we know who they are. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and claim I know who the good guys are. I know who the bad guys are. There's a lot of, and sometimes my opinion has changed. I was not a fan of Ron Johnson up until about 3 years ago, and I have to tell you something. I have tremendous respect for Ron Johnson from Wisconsin for fighting the fight that he's fighting.
Yeah,
And,
he's been one of the
you know,
best. He's been doing it. Rand
yeah.
Paul, Cory Booker on the left. He's been calling out the pesticides as much as anyone.
Hmm.
Thomas Massey, going for
Thomas
freedom, and of
Massey.
course
Yep.
Kennedy for a long time. Man, I've always liked
Mhm.
Tulsi Gabbard calling out the war machine. Right now, I don't know all the details, but I know that peace is better than war, and I know that a lot of times we're in way too many skirmishes. I mean, I think about 10 to 100-fold the states over the last 60 years. So yeah, it's we got to scrutinize all this. Weapons of mass destruction. I thought we heard a report just a couple months ago that they weren't anywhere close to having a nuclear weapon. So yeah, it's just
Iran, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. So that begs the question: what were they? What was Israel really? What was motivating them truly? I don't know the answer to that. That's above my pay grade, Johnny. I think I would leave that to the military political experts. But I have to say, I agree with you. Peace is better than war. I don't think Trump wants war, but um, I was a little surprised at the U.S. immediate participation in those strikes, the bunker busters. I was surprised.
The thing is, Paul, is that right after 9/11, there was a meeting, and they were talking about the 7 countries that they had a plan to go into, and it included everyone that we've been in, 6 out of 7, except for Iran. We went into Yemen and Syria and Afghanistan and Iraq, and we went to all of them. So it seems like it was all part of a plan. You talk about fascism. Well, this is big money. Trump talks about so much about peace, way more than the other side, and he had peace during his first term. But now they want to ramp up the military budget. We're already, bankrupt. We're already spending way over how much we should be. We're already spending way over the next 10 countries combined, even. And they want to up it from under 900 billion to over a trillion. They want to up it by over, 12% or whatever the number is. This is unreasonable. We don't need that. We should be scaling it back. This is something Kennedy was talking about: is that we could scale it back to half what it is now, and this would be the height of where we were in World War II in today's dollars. So yeah, we're just you talk about waste, you talk about government efficiency. Let's start right there. This war machine is poisoning us. This is something that one politician talked about, how you talk to somebody working for the Air Force and talking to them about how at the end of the quarter they would take all their fuel, just massive amounts of fuel, and go dump it out in the ocean. And the reason was that if they didn't use it, then they might lose it out of the budget for next year. So to keep that money coming in, to keep those resources, they wanted to use them. And so this is what we're doing with our tanks, our bombs, all of our weapons, is we're creating all of these harms, all these toxins, all this pollution in the environment. We've got you talk about an epidemic. We've got so many species that have gone extinct. We've got about 90% less life in the oceans than we should have. We're overfishing it, and then you guys just want to have this whole war machine going, firing on all cylinders when there, where's the bad guy? There is no bad guy. We should be doing everything we can to promote peace. So this is just
I
crazy.
think, yeah, I think there's some we're in the process of a reset. You know, I don't know what that reset is going to look like, but I listen to now on the economic side of things, and my world. I listen to. I don't know if you're familiar with any of these names, but Judy Shelton, Larry Lepard, Matthew Peipenberg, Ed Dowd, George Gammon. There are many, many people in that realm, but these are not experts and pundits that you typically hear about in mainstream media, right? You won't see them on the Squawk Box, right? The Squawk Box people are the people who are there to perpetuate the myth, right? Buy the defense stocks, buy the healthcare companies, buy the food companies. We think they're raring to go. They're making all kinds of changes, but guess what? They ignore the fundamental extraction of human health that's being impacted by these companies. But these names I mentioned, they're all sound money people. They understand the importance of sound money. And one way or the other, Johnny, I think we're going to have to get back to a system of sound money. And what that means is, essentially uh, show me that 4-year-old kid who has a piggy bank. And this may sound very pedestrian to a lot of people, but it's really very, very simple. Don't spend money you don't have, right? Especially if you're a government.
And it makes me think of sound food, sound medicine, right? Get
Right.
back to a system where we're not reliant on. I think a lot of us have seen the meme of like the pears that are for sale in America. They're grown in Argentina and they're packaged in Thailand. It's like, what is going on, guys?
Mm-hmm.
This is crazy. When we have fresh food that's grown locally, there's more accountability. It's grown more responsibly. It's better for us because it hasn't been sitting in a shelf. It hasn't been, toxified by preservatives. This is what we got to get back to. With some of the different geopolitical things that are happening, supply chain disruptions, are a real risk for us in
They
our
are.
community. So having local agriculture, investing in those who are doing it responsibly, it's huge. We see the Amish. They're fitter, they're healthier, they're happier, they got better communities. Local agriculture really ticks all the boxes. It brings us together, gives us something to work towards. It makes us fit, exercise, fresh air, sunshine, and it gives us this resilience. It gives us this freedom. It gives us this independence from this consumerism, which is just increasingly tyrannical. So,
And again, Johnny, I'll reiterate something I mentioned earlier for anyone who may have come on late. This is about people power. You know, we need to enrich our own lives and not leave it up to the politicians. And again, that means doing things like going into your grocery store and having a conversation with the manager, or going to your doctor and wanting to know more about alternative medicines and things like chelation therapy, or what are the options, just understanding more and new what is functional medicine about, how does it differ from allopathic medicine. We need to take matters into our own hands, educate ourselves. I will tell you, I'm 66 years old, Johnny. When I was 60, uh, I didn't know a goddamn thing. I've been very blessed to have at least enough of an open mind to recognize that a lot of things have gone wrong. So the reason I mention this is because if I can put the time in during my 60s, I strongly encourage anyone who's got the time, or even just in their spare time, learn about this stuff. Uh, you know, don't assume anything, because uh, question everything. Question everything. That's really important. And it doesn't mean we try to you know have a specific point of view and backfill that with the data we want, right? It means truly having an open mind and being willing to say, hey, I thought this about Fauci, or I thought this about vaccines, or I thought this about the medical profession. I've since learned this, and it has changed my worldview. Um, why? Because I seek the truth, and I seek a better world for my children and grandchildren. And all of ours, all of our children. Uh, I think time is tight because these forces, and we've talked about some of them, they want to uh, co-opt society overall, whether it be through, watching every move we make with our cell phones, with tracking us, right? Having a central bank digital currency that can control our lives essentially, right? That's a separate discussion, but the point is there's a race here, and we need to recognize it. We need to wake up. We need to reclaim our health, reclaim our lives by taking action.
Here, Paul. Yeah, I like what you're saying there about people who have the time. A lot of people, uh, wealth inequality gap is growing, and wages have been stagnant, and inflation's been real. So people who are younger, who have families, they a lot of them don't have the time. So the people who do have the time, it's up to us. And I hear so many times from older folks, hey, I'm glad it's not my generation that has to deal with this, or I'm glad it's not on me. It's like, hello, what a wicked thing to say. Are you kidding me? I mean, first of all, what gives your life, meaning? What gives it purpose? What makes it worth living is that you're part of something that matters. And everything's on the line right now. And this has always been the human condition, that we do the best we can, and then we have real challenges we face. And now when things are darkest, and we need all hands on deck the most, you're going to give up, throw in the towel, and said, good luck to you guys. I'm glad it's not me who has to deal with all this. That's I
Unacceptable.
I've heard that from so many people, Paul. I don't know, like, who's saying this on CNN, getting everybody to parrot it, but it's terrible. This is a kind of learned helplessness they got us under, and people got to snap out of it, because we need to stand up, organize. We got to speak with one voice. Um, we need to stand up against these tyrannical forces. We can make a golden age. We can make the world beautiful. We can do things with the technology and the know-how we have to really take care of people, and that's got to be the goal. And to give up and to want to let these people who are just serial criminals continue to consolidate their power, take our freedoms, and harm us. It's just it's unallowable. We can't allow it. And yeah, so thank you, Paul, for standing up. And you talked about critical thinking. How crazy is it that for critical thinking, having that cynicism that all journalists should have, that we should all have,
Right,
trust but verify, be
right,
gentle as doves but wise as serpents. you know how wild is it that they get you to say, oh, that you're a conspiracy theorist? I'm sorry, if you're a journalist, that's your job, is to be a conspiracy theorist, and you need to be
sure,
sharing all your conspiracy theories with all of us. And if you're not doing that, then you need to put down the mic and go home. That's
right.
exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
And meanwhile, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play connect the dots. And if something makes too much sense to me, then I'm going to consider that as a possibility. And you can call me a conspiracy theorist. I'll gladly accept the title because I have a theory that there's a conspiracy. Now, what we need to do is find out who are the conspirators, right? And those are the ones we need to hold up to be accountable.
Well, I'll tell you who's in on it. All right. It's these journalists. You talk about cynicism. I tell you, whether if you think that everything they're saying on Fox News is right, okay, they're lying to you. If you think everything they're telling you on CNN on the blue side is right, they're lying to you. We got to have a healthy cynicism. Those people who are paying for those ads for a third of the time that the TV's on, it's those interests they're representing. They set the agenda. And so we need to have a healthy cynicism about all of it. And then we need a third option, is to wake up to this, just to bring us together. We should all agree that our food should be safe to eat. We should all agree that our medicine should have real scrutiny about the science behind it. All agree that we want to keep our freedoms, especially in the face of the power of increasing technology and surveillance. So it's easy things that we should all be able to agree on, Paul. So My call to action for people is, hey, help get the word out the best you can. If you don't want to do that on a federal level, on a bigger level, do it on a local level. And if you don't want to do that, you know what? The more that we're feeding bunnies and watering flowers, the more that we're creating abundance locally, responsibly, the more we're all free, the more we're all resilient, and the more we're all healthy. So there's a lot of ways that we can support the movement for all of us.
And that includes contacting us at American Health Revolution at this info at americanhealthrevolution.org. I think once we launch in the next few weeks, we're going to grow quickly, and everyone can participate in that. I don't want to go put the cart before the horse too much, but I do know that we're going to bring integrity to the process. Uh, we're going to seek truth, and we're going to put the people and the patients first. That will happen.
Well, here. Well, I'm appreciative of it all. Paul, you got anything else?
Oh, Johnny. Well, assuming we don't have all night, I think we can leave it here because there is a lot to talk about. We'll get to it next time. But you, my friend, are a true warrior. You know your stuff, and you bring solutions, and that's what the world needs. That's what this country needs. So keep fighting that good fight, my friend.
Right back at you, Paul. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Mahalo. All right, ciao for now.